Wide, it's the show that always scores. Wadden and JPat with you here. Rink Wide is presented by Bodog. Make a play at Canada's choice for free casino games, sports odds, and poker strategies. JPat, I love this time of the year. I love the weather, for one. I love that we're still playing golf, for two. But you go through a week like this and you go, what is we going to talk about on Friday? And then boom, news cycle. Here we go. Canucks get a PTO signing with Danny DeKeyser. We find out about Calvin DeHaan, who we talked about on our last podcast. We got our boy Dollywall out there talking to the important people like Jim Rutherford. So let's start right at the top there. Danny DeKeyser, the defenseman, left shot defenseman, spent his entire career in the Motor City on a PTO with the Canucks.
Former trail smoke eater, played 1 year in the BC Hockey League. That's his connection to the province. Quite frankly, it's a bit of a yawn to me. At this stage of his career, this is a guy that had back surgery, played 8 games a couple of seasons ago. Has never been an offensive producer. This is kind of a stay-at-home defenseman. Some penalty killing utility, I suppose. But I don't see him right now as a candidate to make the Vancouver Canucks. But it's a PTO. There's no risk on the part of the team. I'm not surprised that the Canucks are bringing in somebody on a PTO. There's so many quality players out there that I think you're going to see a lot of this. And you mentioned Calvin DeHaan. Canucks were kicking tires there. He elects to go to Carolina on a PTO. But this year more than others, I think anybody going anywhere on a PTO, they're not just trying to make that team. They are auditioning for the entire National Hockey League. And scouts are going to be watching closely. And it's just a case of not enough money right now to go around. So, I would have liked DeHaan more than I would have liked Dan DeKeyser. But, we see this. And again, one of the things, and this has happened a bunch of years, is that teams bring these guys in. They qualify as veterans. And you have to have the certain number of veterans suit up for every preseason game. And so, for Danny DeKeyser, if he gets into some preseason action, he'll help the Canucks meet the threshold of veteran players, and then you're not relying. Remember, Jack Rathbone played every single preseason game last year. Remember that was one of the storylines that. Yeah. And if you're a young guy trying to make a team, like, hey, Rathbone, get back out there. Great. Like, I'd rather play and have a chance to put my best foot forward than be in the press box and watch somebody else, lighten up the score sheet and doing all kinds of things, and there's nothing you can do about it. So. I don't expect that Jack Rathbone's going to be asked to play every single preseason game this time around, but it does allow the Canucks a little bit more flexibility. And I know Rutherford said, hey, there may be another PTO. Wouldn't shock me. There's no risk. Like, there's really no downside. You're not making any commitment. You're allowing a guy to come and try and put his best foot forward. We've already established that training camp is 2 days of ice sessions. Danny DeKeyser is not going to make the Vancouver Canucks on 2 days in Whistler. So, they're going to want to see him in some preseason action. If he was a right shot guy, he would have moved the needle a little bit more for me, but he is a left shot, very much at this stage of his career, defense first, stay at home. I think, maybe the idea is looking at his penalty killing utility. And I know his agent has said that they recognize where he is at the stage of his career and that they kind of see him as, a Jack Johnson, who was a role player, an extra body for the Colorado Avalanche. And I'm not saying that you can't have those kind of players on your roster. Like Zach Bogosian plays a role for the Tampa Lightning. Eric Johnson was part of the Colorado Avalanche, right? Like, I mean, veteran guys. I'm not trying to run guys that are 32 out of the league, but they've got Luke Shen. They've got OEL. They've got Tyler Myers. They're already on the wrong side of 30. Tucker Pullman is 29. Just at some point, this defense core has to get younger, and adding a piece like this on a PTO doesn't get the Canucks any closer to being a younger group, but they're tapping into the experience that Dan DeKeyser brings. And again, give him a shot. It's a PTO, costs the Canucks nothing, and DeKeyser at this stage of his career, he has to know what he's signing up for.
Well, people get excited about Calvin DeHaan perhaps getting a PTO with the Canucks, and he gets that PTO with Carolina, a team that he formerly played for. But really, people were getting excited about DeHaan, but as you sort of look at the two players, I don't know how much separates, Calvin DeHaan from Danny DeKeyser. Now, you suggested that with, being a veteran presence and the fact that they want to fill out those rosters, is he closer to being just that guy or to being perhaps maybe an eighth defenseman for the Canucks?
Well, I think this is now part of the broader discussion of what are the Canucks doing on their right side? And here's Jim Rutherford today saying that Quinn Hughes has approached them and said he's willing to take a shot. Quinn Hughes approached them last year and said he wanted to be a penalty killer, got that opportunity, and it worked out okay. So sure. I think Quinn Hughes could pretty much do anything he puts his mind to, right? And I look at Cale Makar, and when they broke into the league together, there were the comparisons. Makar separated himself. I think even the staunchest Canuck believers and Quinn Hughes backers would have to admit at this stage, and Quinn can close the gap, and Quinn is an exceptional player, but Cale Makar has taken it to another level and has a Norris Trophy and a Stanley Cup and all those types of things to show for it now. But look at Cale Makar. He's a right shot guy. He's all over the ice, right? He's listed as a right defenseman. But once the puck drops and the puck's on his stick, he goes anywhere he wants. He does anything he wants, and nobody can stop him.
He's a rover, essentially.
And Quinn Hughes is, he's a rover light. And so, would it pose some issues in the defensive zone? But there'd be times he'd have to go back into, the corner to the right of the goaltender and retrieve a puck and make a play on his backhand. Quinn Hughes is so supremely skilled that if anybody on this team could make a play on his backhand, I would put trust in Quinn Hughes. And it's not his shot is such a weapon that somehow you'd be handcuffing him by moving him to the right side. In fact, because he doesn't score many goals, if you put a left shot guy on the right side in the offensive zone, maybe he can step into a one-timer.
Yeah, sure.
Honestly, maybe it bumps up the opportunities for Quinn Hughes to. And again, I don't need Quinn Hughes scoring a ton of goals. If Quinn Hughes gets 75 points and 70 of them are assists, I'm not going to sit here at the end of the year and say, why couldn't 10 of them have been goals and 65 been assists? He is what he is. I think he's going to get better at what he is. You'd like him to be a goal-scoring threat. On the power play, I'd like him to be the threat of a shot to keep defenses on it.
Sure.
But I don't think he had 5 goals in college when he's not a goal scorer. That's not who he is. And ultimately, if he gets to 10, is it that big a deal that he only had the difference between 5 and 10 over the course of an NHL season, to me, isn't enough to freak out about. I'm not looking for Quinn Hughes to become this massive goal scorer for the Vancouver Canucks. I just don't think that's who he is.
But don't you think they need goal scoring from the defense? So then you're basically asking the others to at least chip in 15, 20 more goals if he scores 10?
They put their eggs in their forward basket. They went and they got Mikheyev. They've added Kuzmenko.
Yeah.
They think Besser and Garland and Podkolzin are all going to that's where they're looking for the additional goals. Would you like a few more from your defense? Sure. There's something to be said about balance and defensemen jumping up into the rush and being that next wave of attack. But Tyler Myers had 1 goal. If Tyler Myers had 3 goals last year, again, it's not changing, 3 times as many goals for Tyler Myers. He had 1. So if he gets to 3, it's just not a big deal. And the same thing, for Quinn Hughes to get into Norris consideration and those types of things, he probably has to find a way to bring his goal scoring along a little bit. But I'm just saying, again, the difference between 5 goals and 10 goals for Quinn Hughes, that's not going to change anybody's perception of him.
Okay.
I just think for a guy that plays as much as he does, generates as much offense as he does, jumps up into the rush, skates so well, it's a little surprising that there isn't a little bit more finish there somewhere along the line. But some of that would come on the power play where he scored none. And we pointed that out repeatedly last year. That's a crazy statistic for a guy that's out there manning the point, PP1, quarterback of PP1, an effective power play at that a cup just throw some pucks to the net that hit a body, hit a defender's skate or shin pad or whatever. That's something to watch only because it's sort of become this morbid curiosity of how long can it go before Quinn Hughes scores a power play goal? Right? It's just that's a curiosity to me. So we kind of took the conversation away a little bit from Danny DeKeyser. Can he be an 8th defenseman? I want to see him. It's not like he's coming off this back surgery that I talked about, but man, a back surgery for a stay-at-home defenseman into his 30s, that's a big old red flag that's just waving in front of you. And it's probably one of the reasons that he couldn't get a contract here in the offseason. So his route is the PTO, and guys have made the NHL. Alex Chiasson did it here in Vancouver last year. It can be done. And so, we took the conversation with depends what happens on the right side. I guess let's just play that out. If Quinn Hughes was to line up on the right side, is it Hughes and OEL? Are they playing together? Is Travis Dermott getting an opportunity to play the left side with Quinn Hughes? That seems like a bold risk to move Dermott that high. If you're playing with Quinn Hughes, you're playing a lot, right? And going to see the other team's best players. This is a little bit of moving the deck chairs around because for the longest time we said, oh, they got to address the right side. Well, if their answer is addressing the right side just by moving their best defenseman from the left side, that leaves a hole over on the left side now. Yeah. So, this is 15 years of a lack of attention to that right side. And I think we talked about this in season that, they really have never found a better right shot guy than Kevin Bieksa all these years. I mean, Tanev, free agent, but in the draft, you got to go back to Kevin Bieksa as the last sort of full-time, everyday, top four right shot defenseman that the Canucks have drafted, developed, and had as a regular in their system. And that says something about a bunch of management groups now. So I guess if Quinn Hughes was the guy to go over to the right side, now that it certainly clears a path for Jack Rathbone to put his best foot forward and be an everyday player in the National Hockey League. Now I think you're looking at a left side that would be OEL, Dermott, and Rathbone. And I'm sure Dan DeKeyser would look at that and say, hey, there might be a spot there for me. So I'm not ruling it out, especially if Hughes, if you take the Hughes, your best player, and put him over on the right side, the left side becomes a little bit more wide open now. So maybe that's what DeKeyser saw and thought, who knows what other teams he was looking at and talking to, but maybe he sees that and says, yeah, I think there is a place for me on that NHL roster in Vancouver.
Rathbone's kind of interesting, right? What exactly can he be in the NHL? Can he be Quinn Hughes light?
Well, I remember he started the season here last year, got 9 games, and then they sent him down. Yeah. And it had nothing to do with people, 9 games. So that applies to Canadian Hockey League guys. He had been a pro. It had nothing to do with his contract. It was just they felt they had seen enough. There were holes in his game defensively at the NHL level that they wanted him to address. He played a lot when he was healthy down in Abbotsford, and it kind of feels like he's graduated from the AHL, but that's the American League. This is the NHL. So, I want to see Jack Rathbone a year later now, with the year of pro experience under his belt. What did he learn? He's a smart dude. We know that. He went to Harvard for a bunch of years. I think he'll sort of take his learnings and his findings from his brief time in the NHL and recognize some of the things that the organization wanted from him. But remember, too, he's only played under Travis Green. Travis Green's not here. He got called up on that emergency basis late last season. He was around the team, but he didn't play. He has never played. I don't know that Bruce Boudreau has ever seen Jack Rathbone play in person. So, talk about a guy that has to come to camp and make an impression on a new coaching staff. Rathbone, in many ways, it's almost like he's new to the organization. He's not new to Ryan Johnson. And I guess having Trent Cull on the bench, that'll help because there's familiarity there. But as far as putting your best foot forward for Bruce Boudreau, Rathbone is kind of starting from scratch. But yes, I agree with you. Really an intriguing piece to the puzzle for a team that hasn't developed many of its own. And let's hope that he turns out to be a good news story in that regard.
Yeah, let's break this down a little bit here, because I'm very intrigued with OEL and Quinn Hughes playing together, if they can pull that off. And you're right. If anyone can pick up how to play the right side, it is Quinn Hughes, because let's be honest, the guy's all over the ice. But at that point there, you're looking at an opening perhaps in your top 4. Now, you got Tyler Myers there on the right side. Will it be Travis Dermott that can step up and play those minutes? Or perhaps would it be Jack Rathbone? Would that be a little bit too much early on for maybe someone like Rathbone? So could Dermott be that guy? Could you trust Dermott with top 4 minutes playing alongside Tyler Myers?
I would think at this stage, a couple of weeks out from training camp, that just based on his NHL experience, that Travis Dermott's ahead of Jack Rathbone. That seems like a quantum leap for me to go from the AHL into the top 4 at the NHL
can you
level.
Trust Dermott, right? That's the question. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think the Canucks like what they've got in Dermott, and I think that they were happy to make that trade. I think the fan base all thought that was a good deal to move off Hamonic and essentially turn the draft pick into Travis Dermott and give him an opportunity. I just, all this talk of, all these guys can play their off sides. Like, there was talk, Kyle Burrows, he can play the left side, but he's a right shot guy. Like, I am a believer in putting people in positions to succeed. I just think because Quinn Hughes is so talented and really once the puck drops, positions don't matter as much for a guy that is all over the ice anyhow. Mm-hmm. And I just think he's their best. He's their smartest defenseman. If anybody could adapt, if their mistakes happen, he can skate and get back in position and those types of things. Like OEL, if you're putting him on his offside, he's a veteran guy, but foot speed had already a bit of an issue. And, now you're asking him to adjust to life on the other side. And hey, preseason, that's what preseason is for. Take a look at it. But that seems like more of a gamble. I just think Quinn Hughes is more likely to have some success. I just wish that there was one more in the equation. And it's funny because I was talking to Mark Crawford, and Mark Crawford and his son is, Mark's not working right now in the NHL. His son is the video coach for the Canucks. So he's, paying pretty close attention, and obviously has been a coach in this organization. But, he was really bullish on the Vancouver Canucks and the talent they've got. And he just said, I just wish they had one more defenseman. One more guy in the top four he thinks would absolutely change the dynamics. You'd have Hughes, and then you have another guy. If you had two guys that you could count on, Hughes is going to play 25 to 30 minutes. Another legit top four guy get you 25 minutes of ice time, and then you let the chips fall where they may with, OEL and Myers, and you bring a Rathbone along, and you've got Dermott, and Shen is still here. And I just thought it was interesting to hear a guy who has been there, won the Stanley Cup, and he was like, just one more top four defenseman. And he truly believes that, there's enough in this group with the goaltending and the forwards that they have assembled. So, it's not lost on this management group. I know that they know the defense is still a work in progress here. Unfortunately, they really haven't been able to tackle that. And now it sounds like they're looking for solutions from within, and maybe they're there. But at the same time, if you're, covering your right side issues, it kind of feels like you are robbing from, the left side and just sliding guys across, but that it opens up some gaps in other areas on the ice.
Yeah. The more I look at it here, I think how to solve this puzzle is Quinn Hughes. They have him on the right side. If he can be that guy, that'll really open things up. Now, Travis Dermott will probably get the chance to be able to be in that top four alongside Tyler Myers, but that wouldn't be a bad thing for Jack Rathbone. You could insulate him on the third pair with, maybe a combination of Luke Shen and Tucker Poolman. And, maybe it gives it the opportunity to get his feet, wet and then be able to, elevate his game perhaps later on in the season. We'll have to see. You talk about right shot defensemen, and Rick Dhaliwal, as mentioned, was talking to Jim Rutherford and mentioned the name PK Subban. They said there's been talks about PK Subban, but ultimately the Canucks are not going to go down that road. Not surprising for me. How about for yourself?
No, again, I said, I'm not opposed to the PTO route, but, I just, at this stage, I don't know what PK Subban is. I don't know how much hockey is left in him. I just think they're probably best to move past and try, other directions here. Again, a PTO wouldn't cost them anything, and there's no risk. You're not offering him anything more than a chance to try out for the hockey club. But no, it just doesn't feel like the right fit in the right place. You mentioned Poolman, and we're talking about the right side. And I saw Tucker Poolman out at 8 Rinks is in town and skating. And I think that's great. Like that. And it's nothing more than that. He's at 8 Rinks skating. But for a guy that hadn't been seen on the ice in Vancouver since the middle of the season, and there were questions all summer, the fact that he's here 2 weeks ahead of training camp, that he is in a position to be out skating with his teammates, that doesn't mean that he's getting ready for opening night. It's one thing to have a twirl at 8 Rinks in early September. It's another to, face NHL competition. But it certainly beats the alternative. And a lot along the lines of Andrei Kuzmenko, who was here, months in advance. It's just not leaving anything to chance. If it got down to the last couple of days before training camp and we hadn't seen Tucker Poolman, and then you're starting to wonder, everybody else is here, everybody else is skating, where's Poolman? This doesn't look good. The fact that he's here early, he's, trying to get himself into a position where he's skating with NHL guys. I don't know, he off seasons in Iowa or North Dakota or somewhere. I don't know who he trains with. It's probably not a cast of full-time NHL guys, right? Like this skate at 8 rinks would be better and more intense than anything that he's been a part of to now. And he needs that, quite frankly. And so again, but like for Kuzmenko coming over, if you leave it to last week, there's visa issues and paperwork and all that. And the fact that he got all that taken care of, got his clearance, got here, started to get comfortable in his surroundings, just learning the city, all those things so when training camp arrives, he's going to be in a much better headspace. He's going to be comfortable with his new teammates. You probably saw that video of him helping out at
so
Rogers
good.
Radio. Like the guy, like he's got $1 million smile. He's a character. He hams it for the camera at every opportunity. Like if he hits, this guy could own this town. Like that's my early impression of Kuzmenko. Now he's got to go out and do it, but I love the fact that he's like straight arm and a stiff arm and
no penalties. No penalty. No, you're right. He's winning over the fans already. He hasn't even played a game yet for the Canucks. And Bruce Boudreau was asked about him as Bruce was on with Donnie and Dolly today. And he said, I don't know what to expect from him. But he mentioned that video and said, he's doing his best to, get familiar with the fans out here and with his surroundings. And I mean, it's culture shock too, right? I mean, it happens to all of us, and it seems that he's embracing it. So you got to like that so far. Boudreau was also asked about the importance of having 3 scoring lines. And it got me wondering too, like with JT Miller and, the fact that if they do go Miller, Pettersson and Horvat down the middle, just how intriguing that is, because that's a solid 3 centers there. But it got me thinking as well as, I wonder how much Bruce Boudreau had in terms of, convincing management that, re-signing Miller was the right thing to do because of the structure of how he wants to play and the fact that, he said that he wants to have 3 scoring lines. Of course, everyone wants to have 3 scoring lines. It's whether you have the ability to do it. And the Canucks did have the ability. It's just that contract might be a little bit tough to swallow in those final years. Yeah,
and yet Bruce, through the summer kept referring to JT Miller as his number 1 center. Like I think it was pretty clear what he thought of Miller. Yep. So, I'm sure Bruce is delighted that Miller's under contract. Bruce needs a contract. So, people are, like I've seen this suggestion that, hey, this year isn't really that important for the Canucks. That this year is really more about getting their financial house in order. It's about, guys moving forward and trying to pick up where Bruce left off, but ultimately it's more about finding that fiscal wriggle room that they're seeking, and that a year from now, but I'd say forget that. Like Bruce Boudreau's playing for a contract. Like he needs to have success. I would argue the team needs to have success. Well, they just did with JT Miller.
I
don't think you have to argue. I mean, they've pushed their chips to the middle but individually, like Kuzmenko wants to have a big season because he wants to sign a big time contract. So, there's some pressure and motivation there, but Brock Besser, he needs to have a season. There's lots of guys there's no way, like this market can't afford to watch this team just take sort of a step back and spin its wheels. Like when you sign JT Miller and you make that commitment and you've got the money that you've got on the books, like
absolutely. Yeah.
But at the same time, like they've assembled a forward group that should be pretty damn good. Like, so, and when you've got the goaltending that they've got, like I'm starting to come around now, and again, we'll save season predictions, but I just, through most of the summer, I kind of wondered if it could be a playoff team, but the more I look at it, like I kind of feel like, it's time to like raise that bar a little bit in this market it's time. It's time for some playoff games at Rogers Arena. It's way overdue, quite frankly, but it's, another season can't slide by. I think it's time that this group gets into the playoffs. And I'm sure Bruce Boudreau feels that way if he wants to be extended and continue on as the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, we talk about the puzzle and just how you put the pieces together. And there's 2 pieces I think that are going to be really key. We talked about Kuzmenko on our last podcast and suggested that he, if he breaks out, holy. But also, as we, break it down today, like I really think Quinn Hughes moving over to that right side would really help things out for the Canucks, because that is really their weakness, is their defense. We love Quinn Hughes. Everybody does. But they have holes in that defense. And if they can, adjust a little bit, boy, they could be dangerous. You're right. And Kuzmenko, I mean, if he hits, the problem is if he hits, I don't think they'll be able to resign him. We talked about that.
Yeah.
earlier as well. But yeah, so far so good from what we've seen, at least with him.
But I'll take that problem.
Yeah, sure.
Next summer,
exactly.
as opposed to the
too.
alternative of him not panning out. And yeah. So, just before we spent so much time talking about defense, and this is going off the board a little bit, but it very much pertains to the Vancouver Canucks. In the wake of the Queen's passing and the picture of her dropping the puck, and Ed Jovanovski's name was booting around yesterday. And I love that story. Like, I was there that day. I have vague recollections of it. I mean, pretty unique to see royalty at a hockey game and have Gretzky on the ice and Jovo and Cassie Campbell and their gold medals. And then I had totally forgot, but I love that story that Ed Jovanovski's part of the dignitary group in the opening faceoff. And then he was in the starting lineup. Like, he had to go, see you, Queen. I got a game to play. See you, Liz. And then he opens the scoring 2.5 minutes into the game. And so the stanchion, who was making news of his own this week, and
congrats, Wyatt.
Stanchion, and looking forward to his post-game coverage in a new place at Canucks Army, old new place for him. But I posted the picture of Jovo, and then I posted just a little blurb from the ESPN game story about him having to go change quickly and scoring the goal. And then Wyatt responded on Twitter and just said, I don't think people realize or maybe we forgot, just how good Jovo was at his height. And he was the first overall pick. He was an incredible combination of speed. He was a great skater and physicality. And I'll never forget the knockout punch ended Adam Deadmarsh's career, which, unfortunate, but it was just a devastating punch. And, legit, they squared up to fight. And that's the risk that comes with the game. But so then I kind of got into this rabbit hole of Jovo and was just looking at his statistics. And he had 3 consecutive years with the Canucks where he had 46, 47, or 48 points. Not in that order, but he had those 3-point totals. Talk about consistency. And over 100 penalty minutes in each of those seasons as well. And then, so somebody got into this Twitter thread and they were like, who's the modern day comparison for Jovo? And they were like, Brent Burns? And I was like, no, Brent Burns, he can generate offense, but I don't think of him. He doesn't have that nasty streak. I don't think of him in a physical sense. He's a wild man with his snake collection. And, but I don't think that he's a comparison. And then I was starting to think, who is a comparison to Ed Jovanovski? And so just running some searches and statistical profiles, I put in the last 5 years in the National Hockey League, last 5 seasons, all defensemen, who had 45 or more points and 100 penalty minutes.
It's going to be rare because penalty minutes are way down.
And in the last 5 seasons, Dustin Byfuglien is the only guy that met those criteria.
Yeah.
And you're right. We just don't see PIM totals anymore that get into triple digits. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about players like Josh Manson sort of has an edge to his game, and but he's never going to be a 45-point producer. So he kind of falls short in that. Charlie McAvoy puts up points. I don't think he's as rough and tumble as Jovo. So he really was a unique character. And again, just using those same statistical parameters, in the 50 plus years of Vancouver Canucks hockey, 2 guys have had seasons like that. Bob Daly, going back to the 70s, and then Jovo had 3. So it's happened 4 times, and Jovo owns 3 in consecutive seasons. So really just a rare and unique player, and they don't make them like that anymore.
Yeah, 01 through, 03 there, where he had 47, 48, 46 points, and then 102, 101, 113 penalty minutes. He had
his best statistical season in Arizona after he left Vancouver. His highest point total was in Arizona, but
that's right, 51 points, yes.
But just the consistency to be within a point or 2 for 3 straight seasons. Yeah. And he brought it. I mean, he was guys knew when he was on the ice, there's no doubt.
6 times he scored 10 or more goals, 619 No, sorry, 1,491 penalty minutes. The 619 was just in Florida alone.
Yes.
No, Ed Jovanovski, definitely a beast, and maybe a little underappreciated. I don't know, but Team Canada guy as well.
Well, I mean, he was funny because there were a lot of nights he left you wanting more. Mm-hmm. Like, you knew that, again, first overall pick. There were a lot of nights he left you wondering, like, what exactly were you doing and thinking? And then, man, when he was on, like, easily the best player on the ice on, like 10 nights a year, where you just marveled, like, wow, the combination that this guy brings to the mix is unlike just about anybody. I mean, he was Olympian, right? Like, I mean, it was recognized at his height. He was, I mean, I remember when they made the trade, they always referred to him as like future Norris winner. And you got to be careful, just because at any time there's, really good defensemen in the league, and he never got to that level. But yeah, I mean, the fact that he was recognized by Team Canada to be part of that group in 2002 sort of tells you that, his peers recognized that he was a pretty special player.
All right, you're heading off to the Okanagan. You're going to cover Young Stars for us, which starts, next Thursday?
Next Friday. And a week from now, there's actually game action that we can sink our teeth into. And yeah, I'm going up. I'll be there through the weekend. I'll take you in all three of the Canuck games and maybe take a peek at some of the other games as well. But certainly will be a keen observer for all of the Vancouver Canuck action and whatever, pregame skates and practices and those types of things. And I don't know what kind of lineup they're going to be sending. Most of the European players are already with their Euro teams and have started their seasons. College guys have started the school year. So, it's not going to be a star-laden lineup for the Vancouver Canucks at Young Stars, but it will be, a handful of guys that'll play in Abbotsford this year. And I would think Archdeep Baines will be front and center, and, a good opportunity for him to throw on a Canuck jersey in earnest and play some game action. I would think Danila Klimovich will be part of it as well. Didn't get a chance last year, but as a second-year guy, and you'd like to see him have some moments where he stands out and looks like he's among the best players on the ice. So, those are certainly two of the guys that I'm going to be keeping close tabs on, and I know I won't be alone, but I'm glad that Young Stars is back. It's a great opportunity, get the Canadian teams, the four Western Canadian teams, put their prospects out there on the ice, and Penticton in September is usually a pretty good place to be. So, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I got a couple of names that I want to throw at you that you might see from the other teams. But first for the Canucks, I know you and I talked about this before we started recording, but Arthur Seeloffs, you think that he'll perhaps be there to man goal for them?
Yeah, I think so. Again, you look at the Canucks don't have a lot of goaltending depth available to them among young guys and prospects. And so I think I'm never sure where the cutoff is for Young Stars and Jordan.
They do
Subban.
They have the
Jordan
fifth
Subban
rounder.
Seemed like Jordan Subban is in the Young Stars Hall of Fame. Like, I think he had 5 years, 4 years at least, but it felt like 5 years in a row. So yeah, I think Seeloffs would still qualify, and I would think that we'll see him in goal.
Subban up in the Ring of Honor there in Penticton. Ty Young as well, fifth rounder for the Canucks. He perhaps could play a goal for them too. But there are some names though that are intriguing from Calgary, Edmonton, and Winnipeg. I'll throw a few at you. Connor Zary, a first rounder in 2020 for the Flames.
Kamloops Blazer,
Jacob Peltier, a first rounder in 2019. Edmonton, Reed Schaefer, that was their first rounder from this year. Xavier Brulot from 2021. Maybe Dylan Holloway, maybe Philip Broberg, although I don't know if Philip Broberg, I think he might have graduated past this right now, but Dylan Holloway would be intriguing if they have him there. He did get that one playoff game for the Oilers. Last year,
Peltier's interesting to me just because anytime the Flames were linked to big trades and stuff, like Flame fans freaked out that, anybody but Jacob Peltier, like that's the guy that you can't afford to trade. So they've got high hopes for him. And, if he's playing, I'm looking forward to seeing him.
Lastly, Cole Perfetti from Winnipeg perhaps could be a name that you could see there. Do you know when we're going to expect to see any of these rosters? I guess it's going to have to be within the next few days.
Yeah, I would think early next week. And, I would imagine that teams would either be on the move Wednesday or certainly by Thursday, because game action starts on Friday. And away you go. The Canucks play Friday, Sunday, and then Monday afternoon. And, hopefully some of our listeners and Canuck fans are planning to make the trek up there. I mean, it's a great weekend. It's, an easy drive. And as I said, usually the South Okanagan this time of year, if the sun is shining, most of the tourists have gone home. Not all of them, but it's kind of died down from the summer rush. And, this Young Stars takes over. And in years gone by, it's been a ton of fun. And really looking forward to, again, it's a great way to launch into the hockey season. And it's coming quickly here. I'm going up Wednesday. Scaris and Price are taking their show up there as well. We're doing an event from Neighborhood Brewing on the Thursday. So if anybody's listening here and you're going up and you're going to be in on Thursday night, we're doing a little meet and greet and I think Q&A and whatever else. So make sure you stop by and we'll pump that out on our social channels as well. So you can't miss it, but just want to get the word out there right now.
Yeah, get there early. That autograph line for JPat, it gets long.
Nobody autographs anymore. I see that with the players. It's all about selfies now. Nobody does autographs.
Well, whatever. Selfie, same thing. Get the selfie with JPat. All right. I found this interesting, and I threw it at you today. The MLB made some major changes to their rules that are going to be put into place next year. They're going to enforce that pitch clock, which they needed, and they trialed it in minor league baseball, and it ended up showing that they're getting games in quicker. So the MLB is going to put that in. They're also not going to do defensive shifts. And you're wondering, why the hell am I talking about baseball here on a Canucks podcast? Well,
shot clock. Know, are they going to shot clock in for hockey?
Yeah, perhaps that would be interesting. In this, maybe when they get to 3-on-3 about 20 years from now. But what rule change would you like to see implemented in the NHL? I know there's one that I have, and I don't know if we talked about it actually while we were on a podcast or we just talked about it off, but you tell me yours and I'll tell you mine.
Right. I have floated this in the past. I banged this drum before. This is such a subtle change that it wouldn't impact, quite frankly, it wouldn't impact most games, to be perfectly honest with you, but it seems simple enough to me. And at a time when the league's always looking for ways to increase offense, I've always believed that if a penalty carries over from one period to the next, that the opening faceoff for the next period should be in the offensive zone. Like the penalty killing team should be under pressure right away.
Yeah.
If it was 2 minutes in the middle of the period, they could be under siege for an entire 2 minutes. Why should they be saved by a buzzer and a faceoff at center where they can win the draw, rag the puck, clear it down the ice, kill off 20 seconds? No. Put them under pressure from the drop of the puck. And again, how often does this happen? This isn't an every game thing. But it's a simple, we've already tweaked faceoffs and power plays where you could pick your side so that you increase your chances of winning a draw. If the other team's best faceoff guy happened to be taking the guy in the penalty box, again, right off the hop, it would put them under pressure and a faceoff might lead to offense. And again, I just think a penalty should be a penalty and there should be a price to pay. So, I floated it before. The commish doesn't seem to take my calls on this one, but no.
Interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
That's it would be a pretty simple change.
I love it. And honestly, I've never heard it before. I think it's a fantastic idea because why punish the team that's on the power play, right? And why get saved by the buzzer?
And
definitely
because it's been but you have to have no, you don't have to have a face off at center ice.
Why? Yeah.
Enough of this. It has to be because it's always been. No, if it can better the game in some way, I just think.
Okay. Well, you talk about things that have always been. Well, they made the change that was always been, and now I hate this change. It's the trapezoid. The trapezoid's got to go.
I'm with
you. The lost art of playing the puck by a goaltender is completely lost.
What was wrong with goalies scoring goals?
What was wrong with being scared of the dump and chase because you knew you got Marty Turco or Marty Brodeur back there, right?
No, it makes it think. It makes
a
little finesse in the dump game, and
and if you got a goalie that can control it, remember Marty Turco?
Yeah,
just how teams just couldn't. They didn't know what to do, and now everybody wants to attack in the zone anyway and come in on the rush.
Yeah.
So that it'll make you get better. And plus, those teams that can't come in on the rush now, it's going to force them even more. So it'll bring the skill level, I believe, up in the league. It'll bring the skill level back up with the goaltenders again, because some guys, they fumble all over the place with the puck. Guys don't need to play it anymore. And think about this, too. If there's no trapezoid, how many, although he's gone now. He's not Mike Smith's not coming back this year, is he? Is that been confirmed?
I don't think. Yes.
Think about how many gaffes we would get from Mike Smith. He'd get overzealous trying to play everything. Yeah. Maybe he'll come out of retirement mid-season when Jack Campbell needs a little help
No, but it's, I honestly, every time international hockey pops up on my TV, I'm like, oh yeah, hey, there's no Travis, so it's great. Like, yeah. No, I'm with you there.
I thought we had talked about this on the podcast before. Maybe it was off air. Okay, I got a few things to get to here in terms of Bodog, our sponsor, and we did a fantastic poll question here. I want to thank Andy from Cap Space Wins Cups. Andy on Twitter sent in this. It was a prop bet. What was it again? It was 30 goals for Besser. Would you bet on 30 goals for Besser or 100 points from a Canucks player? Mm-hmm. Now, I kind of said that I would go neither because I don't know how confident I am on Besser to score 30. 29? Sure. I don't know about 30. I haven't seen it yet. 100 points, so hard to get to. We saw JT Miller the season that he had, and he still didn't reach that. So I don't know if I would have went there. So we sort of changed our poll question a little bit, and we asked you, will the Canucks have a 100-point score or reach 100 points as a team this season? And as we've seen, 100 points can be the line to get into the playoffs, as we saw in the Eastern Conference last year. So we gave you 4 choices: 100-point player, 100-point team, neither or both. I voted neither. Where did you go?
Well, I see a lot of people that say, hey, they played at 106-point pace under Bruce Boudreau. You know, now Boudreau gets to start from square one, like, look out world, here they come. And it's not that simple. Like, you have to remember that aside from COVID, and a guy like Pettersson didn't miss a single game because of COVID. That's when they had those cancellations and the home games in January. And other guys missed some time. But, Horvat was healthy right up until the end when he got hurt. Demko, JT Miller was there throughout the season. Like that, there's no guarantee. Like that's just, maybe it's stating the obvious, but there's no guarantee. Health first and foremost, and you need your best players to be your best players. So, it's never just as simple as carrying over from one season to the next.
Sure. The
fact that Pettersson had the finish he did is encouraging, and I hope for his sake and the team's sake that he hits the ground running and looks like that second half player. But it's kind of funny because I was looking at in Canucks history, I think they had 800-point seasons.
Yeah.
As a team.
Yeah.
5 of those 8 came between 2006 and 2012 when they built with the Twins and Luongo and Kessler and Burrows. The best run in franchise history accounts for 5 of the 8 times that they were a 100-point team. Otherwise, it's tough. It's hard. Like 100 points is a lot of points. And so I'm not sure that even with Bruce Boudreau and this assembled cast that they get to 100 points. Like they could get to 95. That would be an improvement over last year, but 95 ain't 100. So it's not easy to get to 100 points as an individual either. We know that.
It's happened 6 times in Canucks history.
Pettersson was on that pace on the second half. And so, but pace projections are just that. Like you have to, guys go through slumps, guys get banged up. It's hard to keep that level. So, I don't see this as a 100-point team just yet, but I said I think that they're going to be on the fringes of the playoffs. I probably vote neither. I probably would vote neither at this stage.
The people did as well. 39.5% said neither, although 24.9% said both. So glass half empty, glass half full here from Canuck fans. So head over to Rink Wide at Rink Wide Podcast. You can vote on all our poll questions, which are presented by our friends at Bodog. You can also hit us up in the Great Clips inbox at 778-402-9680. We want to know, Andy suggested those great props. By the way, would you bet on either of those? Would you bet Besser to get 30 goals or a Canuck to get 100 points? And as I mentioned, it's only
I think Besser, if Besser is healthy, and again, it is part of the conversation, but it's kind of funny because I know Patrick Allvin didn't include him in the core when he listed off the core group, and yet I think whichever line Brock Besser is on becomes your top line. So in that sense, he's a pretty important piece if you're trying to figure out who's the top line of the Vancouver Canucks. So it's probably the line that Besser's on. It's not as you can't say, JT Miller is going to be top line, even though Bruce calls him his number one center. If Besser plays with Pettersson, I think right there, that's your top line. If he's healthy, if he plays in all situations the way that he did last year, contributes on the power play and plays with healthy Elias Pettersson, it just feels like the year that Besser has to get to 30. There's no excuses. He knows that he's getting paid now to be a goal scorer for this group. So there is some expectation. The family issues, sad as they were, have been resolved. That hopefully isn't weighing on him. It's totally understandable that it did down the stretch last year. Let's hope that COVID's not an issue and those types of things. It just feels like this is the year for Brock Boeser, because if he doesn't get to 30, then I think it's fair to start, will he ever? And this management group has rewarded him with the contract. They're going to give him an opportunity to play in whether it's Miller, whether it's Pettersson, he's going to play with one of the top two centers, you'd think. If it doesn't happen for him, though, we know that this management group has to shave some salary somewhere. And so it kind of feels like it really is a big season for Brock Boeser in that regard.
Yeah.
But I think he gets there. I think he scores 30 this year.
Yeah, honestly, I think between the two, I think if I was going to lay money, it would be on that prop bet, because as I mentioned, only 6 times it's happened in Canucks history that someone's got 100 points or more, and it was done twice by Pavel Bure. So you can see how rare that is. Again, we'd like to hear some of your prop bets. If you got some prop bets that you think, perhaps Bodog should put on the menu. Send them to us.
We throw lines at you all the time. So let's hear from you guys. We'll do it in reverse here. This is, come up with a line. Some, player, prop, whatever. Just fire away. We want
force the hand. Hit them up at Great Clips inbox 778-402-9680, or you can always hit us up on our social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, at Rink Wide Podcast. Okay, greatest Canuck to wear number. We're at 81. We're getting there, JPat. We're almost there. And this one is an infamous name in Fedorov. 15 total games played as a Canuck, 2 assists. But no. Nobody remembers any of that. They all remember the Kevin Bieksa incident.
Yeah, but up until yesterday, that's all I thought about when I thought of Fedorov. And then I read in the game when the Queen dropped the puck, he scored twice. Jovo opened the scoring. Fedorov scored twice. He had 4 goals that preseason. Canucks beat the Sharks 3-2 in the Queen game, and Fedor had 2 goals, including the winner. So, again, had forgotten about him, but there's a little additional Fedorov story. Is he the only guy to wear 81, or are there?
He's the only guy to wear 81. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, we are going to be bringing the penalty box back in Player of the Week.
Yes.
This year, we love that. But guess what? I'm in the penalty box this week. I had our pregame completely wrong. We are not going to be doing a pregame podcast. We are going to be doing our pregame exclusively on YouTube. That's right. You're going to get to see our ugly mugs on YouTube as we set the game up.
I got to comb my hair?
Just wear a hat like I do.
Oh, okay.
People probably think I'm bald. I got lots of hair. I just like hats, all right? But yeah, no, I'm in the penalty box this week. I had it wrong. And many thanks to Grady Sass, our social media manager, for setting that up. We're going to be on YouTube, and of course, we'll be launching our TikTok that we've been talking to you guys about, as well as Instagram. So look for more video from us this year, including that pregame pod. So looking forward to all of that. I know last episode, I thought I was done. I was about to, wrap things up. Can I do that? You got anything else you want to talk about?
No, I've emptied the tank here on this Friday. So hopefully everybody has a great weekend. It looks like this might be the final weekend of summer, because the weather's supposed to change a little bit. So get out there, enjoy the sunshine. And of course, if this is it for the sunshine, it times nicely with hockey season actually starting. Games in Penticton a week from now, training camp in Whistler 2 weeks from now. And they come right out at Whistler and start playing games. So it's here. It's on. And I think every day, like JT Miller said earlier in the week, he's going to be arriving here in Vancouver, a new contract in hand. I would think, we've seen quite a few guys out at 8 rink skating, but the stars of the show have not, there's been no Miller, there's been no Horvat, Pettersson, Boeser, Hughes. I think that probably changes over the weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of the big boys skating here in Vancouver starting next week.
And you mentioned Whistler there. I was in Whistler earlier this week playing up at Whistler Golf Club. Many thanks to our buddy Al Chris Manson for putting up with us. And, maybe we'll have to tap Al on the shoulder when we're up there for training camp. We'll have to see. All right, let's put a bow on this one. For Jeff Patterson, I'm Andrew Wadden. This has been another edition of the Rink Wide Podcast. Remember, Rink Wide is the show that always goes.